Good afternoon. Happy to report that it's over 100 degrees in my shop today. You've heard me complain about freezing to death in the shop. Well, I'm going to take a heat stroke. So today I've got 2.5 horsepower plunge router. It says professional Chicago Electric Power Tools. The professional to me means that you can use it all day, every day, and it won't break. So we'll find out about some of that. 37793 is the part number. 2.5 horsepower plunge router. Nice and compact in the box. Long cord, maybe a little bit more than 6 foot. The basic router, very heavy. Also manual, you always want those. Box of accessories. So it's been through hell because that lid's off. That's a 1/2 inch straight bit. They give you those on most of the routers. Give you an insert, that's good. They give you the brushes for the motor. If this is a professional tool, you might actually wear those out. A wrench. Only one wrench. And this is the guide. And they give you 2 collets. Looks like 1/4 inch and 3/8. Okay, so 1 wrench. That means that they've added a button to hold the motor. Yeah, excellent. Like that. I'm going to turn this to get it down. I kind of have mixed emotions about that. It allows for very precise adjustments. If it's all the way in and you want to go out, then it takes a few minutes. Don't even have a way to attach a drill to it. Got some pretty strong springs. That's kind of nice. I do like this. You get a lot better control rather than the levers. This wheel is the adjustment for the top height. That's when you push down. That's what it comes back up to. So you want that to retract enough that the blade will clear the workpiece. But you can go lower than that. Set that, and it's fixed. No adjustment. Appears to be a solid built router. I like this shield. That shield can keep the dust from blowing out this way. You could also possibly add a dust collection at the bottom. Make a mount that has a hole there for dust collection. Dust collection in a router never works well. So everything I'm seeing so far is okay. These are somewhat comfortable. It's very heavy, but I don't know how you could get around it not being so heavy. Okay, so they've added 3 stop positions. So if I'm using it as a plunge router and I go down, it goes down until it hits whichever one is in the back. You can adjust these. This is for a little bit of depth, more depth, a lot of depth, a lot of versatility there. I can see why they use 3, and they seem to turn okay. They can be tightened. Might be a little awkward, but they can be tightened. You could also set one of these and then fine-tune adjust it with this. Okay, like most routers, it comes with this guide. This is actually a heavy-duty guide. They seem to engineer their professional line a little better. Okay, it's also got this insert plate, and there's 2 screws holding it in. I know why they did this, but it doesn't excuse it. It's got a removable plate. 4 screws takes that out. These 2 screws are in there amazingly tight. They do that so they won't vibrate out. And you want to continue doing that when you put this in, but you've got to take those out. And the first time you take those out, not very easy. When you go to get that, get the right screwdriver. You need a number 2. And a number 1, a 3 won't fit. A number 1 will strip it. So you want to press as hard as you can, turn those out. And they put those in there so tight so that they won't vibrate out, but it makes them amazingly difficult to get out. So get you a good number 2. So let's take the plate off and see what our... The simple fact that it has a plate is an advantage because that means you can make your own plate. A lot of people do that. Very common to make plates out of plexiglass or steel for specific uses. square plexiglass or square steel to be put in a router table. So just cheap plastic, no big deal. You have to have a plate on or you're not going to get good movement of this. And there's where that adjustment screw comes in. This one's hollow. They actually go below the surface of this. You can use this without a bottom, but I think you're more likely to hang up on stuff with all of this. In the manual, inside back cover has the exploded view diagram. Very important. So if you go down here and look, there's 54 and 55 are the two screws from underneath. Number 54 is a countersunk head screw M4 by 10. So that would be these with the countersink heads. 55 would be a pan head washer number 5 by 10 with a washer. So these are M5 by 10. You could replace these. I would go with maybe stainless steel if you could get hardened, although I think that's unlikely to be getting hardened screws this small. You can get them, you just might have to go to someplace like McMaster's. So let's put this on. And you do not have to take the plate off to put this on. I wanted to take the plate off to see what was under it. So that's good, that's a guide. Now we're going to make sure that the bit, when it's put in, is centered inside of that. One of the things I don't like is the button's here and the shield is here. So you've got to hit the button, use the wrench. I also lost my easy access to the collet because I put that guide in. Now the way I have this, it's very hard to get your fingers down in there. There we go. So I want to loosen that. So there's the 1/2 inch collet insert. We'll put this through there. Okay, I would have liked to have been able to do that from the outside, but I couldn't. Put that in. Now I've got to tighten that collet nut. And I gotta hold the button. There, it just flipped in. I put that all the way in. It's a 1/2 inch bit, so I've got plenty of space on that bit. But to get enough room to work, I had to raise the motor from the bottom. I don't like that, but I'm not so sure I have to do that. When I took this off, I had enough room to work. So that's in there solid. Let's put this back on and see if it's centered. So, I'll tell you what's the problem here is this is smaller than the hole. Now that might seem like a good idea, but now that's not centered. Well, the plus side of that is I have some room for adjustment, so maybe that isn't quite so bad. Okay, so there's how much room I have. So with that in, I can get about 1/2 inch roughly. Okay, so is it centered? No. And this is very awkward to work on. It would be best to have a square block to set under that. The styrofoam makes it a little better until I can build something permanent, because there will have to be a prop anytime you work on this. Otherwise, it's just too hard to balance it and work on it. Okay, so that is not centered, but there is some adjustment room, so let's see if I can get it centered. Anytime I'm adjusting something, it could be a tiny bit off and affect how I'm doing the work. I would have much preferred that this fit perfectly in there and the center of this was the center of the blade. Obviously that's not the case. That looks centered, but only doing a test cut will I be able to tell that. See, there's room here all the way around, and there's room here all the way around, so I've got to start adjusting that, do a couple of test cuts until I know it's centered. This is set up so you can use it without the plate, but it's going to work so much better with it. You lose 1/8 of an inch of depth of cut. Notice I have to have this to work on it because of this. Okay, if you would put this in a router table, this would be underneath, so you have to reach all the way under to get to it. If I want to adjust this, I turn it down and it pops out right here. And I've got these 3 different length adjustable screws. So that's actually a very handy thing. It's plastic and it's a little loose, but it should be a repeatable thing. If I tighten this, what I'll have to do is set the depth with the screw, then tighten the nut against the bottom. If I've tightened this correctly to the depth that I want, every time this goes down, it should hit the same place and be a repeatable distance. So that would be a plus, and that's probably going to be convenient. There's a solution to not have to have a prop is if you can hang it over the edge of something. That works okay. Okay, what about 1/4-inch router bits? I happen to have some. This 1/4-inch bit is out of what I call the Harbor Freight small router bit set. That's going to fit in the cullet. That works good. I've got that turned all the way down, and that actually makes it a little awkward to get in here. So I'm going to press that button, start turning this till it locks. And then I'm going to take that out. Okay, I prefer to take the cullet nut all the way off when changing router bits. You probably don't need to do that. Be careful with router bits, they are sharp. So it has a 1/2-inch cullet that stays in there permanently, and the 1/4-inch fits inside of that. Now, one advantage to the way this is set up is I can put them flush on the bottom and get an extra 1/4-inch depth of cut. I could actually go another 1/4 inch and get a 1/2 inch, but I prefer to stay further down. Now that pin for the motor has a very strong spring in it. So that's working okay. So one of the things I like about this is this adjustment screw. If I want to set a specific depth of cut, I can use this. But that's using it in the fixed mode. If I want to use it in plunge mode, I need to lower this until it hides 100% of the router bit. Then I can set my depth of cut and make it repeatable by using these in the configuration I have. So in this case, I need to use the longest one. So I just spin it around. I got to make sure that that's above this to get it in there. Then once it's in there, I can start adjusting depth of cut. Say I want 1/4 inch. Push it down and lock it. Then I'm going to turn this. I'm going to keep doing that, pushing it down, locking it, and adjusting this until I get the depth of cut that I want there. So then I can release that, and when I'm using it, I can turn it on, put it in place, and do the plunge. And I get a repeatable distance every time. Now, if I want to fine tune that, I can set this by tightening this nut. I lock that in place. If I need to fine tune that, I can actually fine tune it this way. This screw will come down and fine tune the depth of cut. What it does is it restricts it just a little bit more. To get it out of the way, you need to rotate this way. If you rotate this way, there's a very good chance it's going to hit the inside of that router. So if you turn those out, then you're going to get full depth of cut. So what you do is make your first cut at this very shallow cut. Then you flip this, make your next cut. You see that one's a lot deeper. And then I can do my third distance, which is almost full extension. If you're using the router, you're going to have it with both hands, and that makes the plunge a lot easier. Kind of neat, a lot of options here. Liking it so far. So what about these guides? How do we use these guides? This pretty obviously fits in those slots. But then we have 2 guides that go on it. And if you notice, there's an indentation here. And there's an indentation at the top of that screw. This goes like this. So there's a slot to fit over that indentation, and the whole thing fits down in that indentation. And you put on the wing nut. I've got that tight so it doesn't move, but I can loosen it. Now I can fine tune the distance by turning this in and out. I like this. If you're using this tool and it doesn't give you enough stabilization, you can put a piece of wood across the front of this, give you more distance to run along, get you more accuracy. So this goes like this. You notice they have one hold down screw here and one hold down screw here. You cannot put one here because of this depth adjustment. Okay, you run out of screw before you run out of slot. Well, this does give you small adjustment capability. It does get a little tedious turning it all the way in or all the way out. So all the way in, and then I can adjust these to get close. What I would do myself is I would get this close, tighten it, fine adjustment with this. And you need both of these hold down wing nuts on, or this will go side to side. Hey guys, I've used this quite a bit over the last couple of months. I really like it. This router is a horse. It weighs 20 pounds, but it'll cut anything. As long as you have a halfway decent router bit in there, this is a great router. I really like the fine adjust. Doesn't do the greatest with 1/4 inch bits. Does okay, doesn't do the greatest. I wish that it had on-off switches on the handle, but the on-off is very convenient right here. I would definitely put this in the professional class. It is a horse. And it's got one beefy, God, the micro adjustment on this is great. Router setup is so easy with this thing. I still don't like that that gets in the way of it setting up okay, but since I got this mini workbench, it works out pretty good. Let's set this up for a very shallow cut. So just tighten these up. Okay, I want to demonstrate this and how it works and the depth of cut. So I'm just going to route a small slot. I'm going to use the plunge cut feature, but let's see what we can do. That did good. The cut is more a reflection of the router bit than the router, although there was no strain on that router whatsoever. It fired up, it spun, no problems. Definitely needs dust collection. Very happy with this. This thing will do, in terms of horsepower, this has all you'll ever need. You could do a thick cut with this, although I wouldn't recommend it. You still should do several passes. This has plenty of horsepower. The 2.5 horsepower rating is right on the edge of what you're going to get out of 110. So sometimes I question if that's accurate or not, but this thing has plenty of horsepower. So I really like using this. I've used it for months, and it's very easy to use, very nice. It is a little heavy. That's probably the only problem with it. Okay, so there's a demonstration cut. Got this on sale for $80. $80 is a lot for a router. When I need this, comes in very handy. I really like it. So to me, it was worth the $80. This has so much horsepower in terms of using it all day long. It's not going to hurt the router any. It's going to probably hurt your arms a little bit, but it is a workhorse of a router. Truly a professional tool. So if you like the videos, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.